Hey GMs, so I want you to imagine, there I was, Vail, Colorado. I'm standing on top of the mountain, it's my third time skiing, and I am looking down, and I am seriously contemplating my life choices right now. And I tell you that because I've learned a few things about skiing. Number one is this: by the third time skiing, you're practically a professional. And I tell you that because my first time was literally a disaster. See, my friends had sold me on all the good parts of skiing. They're like, come, we'll ski, we'll have great food, we'll get in the hot tub, we'll create great memories. Lies. What your friends don't tell you is all the stuff that could go wrong. And I tell you that my first time was a disaster because everyone had warned me about getting off the ski lift. And y'all, I was prepared. It was my very first time, and I'm on that ski lift and I can see the end in sight. And there's a little kid right beside me that, for the purposes of this story, we're going to call this little kid the Terminator. Because at some moment we lift the bar off the ski lift, and right before we get to where we're supposed to get off, he's such an expert skier, he just jumps off, darts in front of me, and cuts over. Well, as I go to get off, I think I'm going to hit him, so I lift my foot up. Obviously, you can't do that on skis. My skis cross, my legs get tangled up, and I fall over. And y'all, it was so embarrassing. It was one of those moments where they had to shut down the entire ski lift. The workers came out to actually help me off, or help me up, get up off the ground, make sure I wasn't hurt. You know that moment in life where it feels like everyone is just watching you and laughing. It's like the paparazzi is there. That's what it felt like in that moment. It was super embarrassing. And I was like, I will never have a moment like that again skiing. And so by the second time, y'all, I wised up. I got myself a ski instructor. His name was Andy Berger. And Andy does what any great RGM, any great coach does. He encouraged me, he motivated me, and he gave me some good advice that I've still used to today. And he said two pieces of advice. One said, he goes, quit worrying about the turn you messed up and worry about the turn in front of you. And I'm like, okay, that's good advice for all of us. And the second thing he said was, he goes, if you don't fall, you're not trying. And I remember thinking, if you did your job, I wouldn't have to fall. I mean, I didn't say that to him, but that's what I was thinking, right? But I took Andy's advice, and by the third time skiing, y'all, I am ready sitting on top of that mountain, all right? Look, I even bought this nice Spider ski wear. I was like, I might not know what I'm doing, but I'm going to look the part. And if I'm being 100% honest with y'all at this point, I don't even like cold weather. I am only really doing this ski thing really to try to prove to myself that I can be somewhat athletic and put it on Instagram. And I knew I probably shouldn't have been doing this, but there I was, y'all. I am standing on top of that mountain. I am feeling confident. I feel like I'm looking good, and I am ready to take off. So all of a sudden, I'm on that mountain. I stab the poles in the ground, and I take off. And y'all, I am heading down that mountain. The wind is in my face. I feel the burning in my legs as I go side to side, probably using them more than I really need to. And I don't know about you all, but did any of y'all had that moment in life when things are going well and you should just stay the course, but then you get in your own way? Put a yes in the chat if you've ever had that moment. Things are going well, but you just kind of get in your own way and you make some decisions you probably shouldn't have made. Well, all of a sudden, as I'm heading down the mountain, I look over here to my left and I see this beautiful tree line. And in my head, I go, that is so beautiful. I wonder what it looks like inside the tree line. Now, you all already know where this story's going, and it ain't good, all right? So all of a sudden, I have a friend up ahead of me, and I'm like, hey, is there an opening in the tree line up there where I can come out? And she was like, yes. And so I start making my way into the tree line. Now, I'm going to be honest, y'all. I'm not going very fast. I'm probably going 2 miles an hour. So this is not me speeding through the tree line. But I go into that tree line, and it is magical. The sun is bright, it's shining on the snow, it looks like this little glitter, all the little snow in the trees look like little clouds, And I'm just admiring the view for about 10 seconds. And then all of a sudden, my left ski completely falls off and I fall flat in the snow. And at first, y'all, when I fell, I just start laughing because I'm like, how did that even happen? And my first instinct was what Andy Berger said. He's like, if you don't fall, you're not trying. And I'm like, I'm trying, Andy, right? And so I realized, though, when I fell, I'm pretty deep into snow because the snow wasn't groomed over there. So I can't move, so I have to take my ski pole, grab the ski that has fallen off and like try to bring it back towards me. And I do it and I try to like step back into the ski and I can't get in there because my feet are so far under the snow. Every time I try to do it, it just keeps getting further and further in the snow. Well, I'm starting to get a little nervous and I'm starting to get a little worried and I'm like, just stay calm. Just figure out what you got to do to get out of this situation. And without thinking about it, my rational thought in that very moment was, Justin, just don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just take off both skis and just walk out of here. So I unbuckle from the other, step out of the other ski, grab both skis, and I take one step. And when I take a step, I fall into snow up over my waist. And y'all, now I'm in trouble. And I don't know how many of you all ever saw that movie Ghost. If you did, you can drop a yes in the chat box. But if you ever saw the movie Ghost, she one of the famous lines from that movie is when she goes, Molly, you in danger, girl. And in this moment, I'm like, y'all, I'm Molly right now. Like, I'm in danger. And I'm sitting there and I'm freaking out. I don't know how I'm going to get out here. The only thing I could think about is, okay, worst case scenario, I'm just going to hold on to this tree until they come and save me. And then I look down at my outfit and I'm sitting here like, y'all, it's almost all white and black. They ain't even going to see me inside this tree line. And I'm getting nervous. And all of a sudden I hear my friend outside the tree line yelling for me, like, are you okay? And I'm like, of course I'm not okay. I would have come out by now, right? And I finally, as I'm listening, I tell her, no, I took off my skis. And all I can hear her say is, put on your skis. And, I was sitting there thinking, well, how am I going to do that? But I'm going to tell you, when life's in trouble or you feel stuck, you are going to figure out a solution on how to get through it. And I just put my skis on the snow and I slammed both feet into it, even though they ended up being about 2 or 3 feet under the snow. And I was eventually able to shuffle my way out of the snow and get to where my friend was and be safe. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're probably sitting there thinking, how did I get out of there while still looking so good? I know, right? It's the spider ski wear. But you're really probably thinking like, how did I get out of there? And what does this have to do with me as a GM? Well, here's the deal. I hope none of you ever experience a ski accident like that. But every one of you, you know what it's like to feel stuck. I think about this past year that all the GMs that I've had to work with or had the opportunity to coach, and so many of them felt stuck with staffing issues that they're facing, hiring people that never show up, hiring people that come in for a day or two and then just don't call and are no-shows. I've had to work with people that felt stuck because of supply chain issues and not getting the product they need. And I've also worked with, I don't know about you all, but I've also worked with some GMs who for the last year and a half have been motivating and pouring so much into other people. And they're like, Justin, I'm depleted myself. I'm exhausted, right? That's professionally, but I've even worked with some people personally that are in relationships that are stuck. One of the things I've always believed is you can be in a relationship, you can be married and feel alone. We all have moments where we feel stuck. And here's what I want you to know if that's you. First of all, if you're in that moment where you feel stuck, I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm actually going to prove it to you. In the last year, if you've ever had a moment in one of those examples where you just felt stuck, emotionally exhausted, didn't know how you were going to get out of it, I want you to drop a yes or a heck yeah in the chat. And I just want you to see how many people respond. I want you to see that you're not alone. And that's what I love about this KFC family is we're not afraid to own it, and we're not afraid to step up and support and encourage each other as we're going through those hard times. So here's the deal. This is what I want to do in the rest of the time that we have together. You might feel stuck today. And if you don't, you're going to have a moment in the future where you're going to feel stuck. And when you do, I want to give you 3 specific actions that you can take to really make your comeback story possible. And you'll be able to use this both in your personal life or your professional life as a GM. So let's talk about it. I believe the very first thing that we have to be able to do to create our comeback story and get unstuck at any moment in life is we have to be able to reflect back. Now, y'all, that's going to be controversial because I know some people out there that say, there's a famous line that says, "Don't look back. You're not going that way." And I'm like, I've seen you make the same mistake 5 times. You need to look back, right? And our past definitely does not define us, but we can definitely use it to shape us and understand how we can move forward in a really better way. I'm going to give you all one of my favorite quotes, and it comes from a guy named Alan Cohen. And he says, "Use pain as a stepping stone, not a campground." I want you to hear that. Use pain as a stepping stone, not a campground. And I believe there's a lot of people that camp out in their pain and it doesn't serve them, and that's why they don't move forward. And what happens is I think that feeling of being stuck or using pain as a stepping stone, that happens when we have the courage and the awareness to just look back and reflect, learn from it, and figure out how we're going to use that to move us forward. So in my ski incident, this was the problem. I wasn't reflecting back. I was just trying to go and react. And think about how sometimes in the restaurant we do that. We're in a moment where we got to rush and we just throw people on the line that maybe aren't trained and they're overwhelmed, and we're just reacting and not really reflecting back. I had a boss once who told me, "Justin, what you need to do is learn to sit in the bath water." And she was using the bath water as an analogy because so many people, when times get rough or we get uncomfortable, we just want to get out of the situation. And so we don't really learn the lessons we need to learn because we just try to find a way to get out of it. And she's like, you need to sit in that water until you learn what you need to learn. Only then should you get up. And I'm going to tell you, over my coaching career, this is one thing I've learned. I think we also got to be able to do. If you're going to really reflect back at any point in your life, here's the question I want you to ask yourself. Is this a moment or is it a pattern? Because what I've figured out in time, sometimes we're all going to have bad days, right? Somebody's going to make us mad. Something's going to trigger us. And if it's a moment, I think we just got to give ourselves some grace, forgive ourselves, and just know that's not who we are. However, I think for a lot of us, we got to look back, and when we reflect, we got to find the patterns. And we got to ask ourselves in that moment, what is the pattern that I keep demonstrating? And I'm going to give you some examples, right? Maybe a pattern is my VOCs are constantly low. Maybe the pattern is my team members are constantly not working together. Or I constantly, as a GM, I always have problems with an area coach or people in higher levels of leadership. Or, you know what? Maybe the pattern is every time that I get home, I'm so exhausted that my family gets the worst of me. And so I believe that when we can look at the pattern, we can make some different choices. But that takes the courage to reflect. And what I want to leave you with on this part is reflection doesn't mean we beat ourselves up. It's just acknowledge what the pattern is and figure out what we want to do differently as a result of it. To me, reflection is such an important part to making your comeback story possible. The second thing that we've got to do, though, you can't have a comeback story until you've gotten up. I'm going to give you an example. I wrote a book, my first book ever, leadership book, was called Bold New You. And when I wrote that book, after being at Yum Brands for about 2 years, here's why. I wanted to understand, what does it mean to be a champion? And here's why. I was teaching all these leadership programs, and we were talking about the leaders we really admire, whether people was our parents or people, mentors in the company. And some of the way people talked about these people they admired, they were talking about them like they were a champion in their lives. So I wanted to understand, what does it really mean to be a champion? So we launched a nationwide study to understand, what does that word really mean? And here was the fascinating part. The common definition that came out was, a champion is someone with the relentless determination to just get up again and again for both themselves and other people. And so to me, part of having that comeback story is even when I don't feel like it, even when I don't know how, I'm going to figure out a way to just get back up for myself and for other people. And I had the chance to coach someone recently who, like many of us, had really went through a really rough time. And he had talked about how he'd kind of lost all his self-worth, his confidence in himself. And I just remember taking a moment and said, can we just reflect back for one moment? And he was like, sure. And I said, when he told me he didn't feel good enough, I said, what was the earliest memory you have of not feeling good enough? And he said to me, it was when I was a little boy and my dad left my mom. And I waited on the front porch for 4 hours waiting for him to come back home. And he never came back home. And in that very moment, what he internalized was, I'm not good enough to come back home to. I'm not lovable enough. And here's what's interesting. I shared that quote that I just shared with you all from Alan Cohen, that you can use pain as a stepping stone and not a campground. And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, I parked my RV right up in there and I've been camping out for years. And here's the amazing part. With just that awareness, he started thinking differently about what his options could be. And I explained to him that he wasn't that little boy anymore, and that now, as a leader inside of a company, he gets to use his voice and his presence to be there for others in maybe a way that other people weren't there for him. And I remember at the end of the conversation, he goes, I just feel so much lighter. And then this was the important part. He says, I have a new vision for how I want to show up in the world moving forward. And to me, this is the important part of getting up. Getting up, the question we've got to be able to ask ourselves is, what is the new vision we want to move forward with? Because that is what is going to help us be able to get up in that process. I believe that you as GMs, you win every time you choose not to give up on yourself and you choose to get back up. So part of making your comeback story possible is you got to reflect back and you got to be able to get up. And the last thing you got to be able to do is you've got to be able to move forward. It was Albert Einstein who said this line. He says, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you have to just keep moving forward. And moving forward requires all of us to let go of campground mentality, focus on just the next right turn, and then really embrace the possibilities of what could be. I believe that all of you watching this right now, you deserve a life of possibility. But it's action that makes that possibility a reality. And here's the good news, because people always ask me, well, Justin, how do I know if I'm making the right choice? And the good news is, you don't. And what's even more important is I don't think there's any one right choice. Moving forward is just trying to figure out the next right answer. I was watching a YouTube video years ago by Dewitt Jones. He was a photographer for National Geographic. And in his talk, he says, I'm not worried about getting it right. I'm just looking for the next right answer. And I just find that to be such good advice on life, is what would happen if we weren't trying to always get it right 1 year from now, 1 week from now, and just say, what's just the next right answer that I feel that I need to give it everything I got? And then after that, I'll figure out just the next right answer. And here's the deal with that. When we figure out the next right answer, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Life isn't about being easy. And I think there's actually something I can demonstrate for you that will prove it. I don't know how many of you know about the Biosphere 2 Dome in Tucson, Arizona, but the Biosphere 2 Dome was an enclosure that was created to study ecological systems in this enclosed space, so we could try to see what would life be like on other planets and all of this. Well, a fascinating discovery happened in the Biosphere 2 Dome. These trees inside the dome were growing at such a faster rate than what they grow in nature. But they kept breaking and before they would reach adulthood. And at first, the scientists didn't understand why these trees would all break before adulthood. And here's what they discovered eventually, was that in nature, in life, out in the elements, there is wind. And wind causes stress on the tree. And the more stress that is created on the tree, they create stress wood, which makes them hardier and more resilient. And without it, the trees actually can't survive. And I started taking a step back and I thought, how true for us as people. If everything was easy all the time, right? We wouldn't, anytime it got hard, we would just fall apart because we wouldn't know how to handle it. But every time we pick ourselves back up, right? We reflect back, we get up and we move forward. We build our stress tolerance. And if we've done it once, we can do it again. I think stress is an important part of us understanding that we can be resilient and what it takes to be able to pick ourselves up and move forward. So I want to leave you with this. I believe all of you are just one turn away from an amazing comeback story. Now listen, you might not get there on the first turn or the fifth turn, but every great comeback story starts with at least the next right turn. As someone who teaches leadership presence, I can promise you, nothing looks better on you than resiliency. And success is often the result of multiple comeback stories. So please never give up on yourself when you're in that moment and you feel stuck. And I just want to also say this. In the past 9 years of working with so many of you, being in this organization, the one thing that I know for sure is you are the heroes of this company. This company in the last year and a half has starting to have a comeback story because of the efforts that all of you have demonstrated. And I want you to know that we see you and that we appreciate you. And things might be going well right now. And if they are, we celebrate you. But I want you to know the moment in life that you do feel stuck, I want you to remember this. Take a breath. I want you to reflect back. I want you to pick yourself back up with a new vision and then move forward and just ask yourself, what is just the next right turn for me as I move forward? You are all just one turn away from an amazing comeback story. So if no one tells you they believe in you, I believe in you. I can't wait to see what turn you take next.